Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I am greeting you from the other side of the world. My colleagues have once again sent me far away from home. No, I am sorry. I'm so sorry. We have to record this a little differently now because originally there was supposed to be a moderation from India, but we had a bit of a sound problem after a very short time. That's why I have to present the whole thing again from the couch. I'm going to tell you a bit about TVS, an Indian manufacturer who is trying to get into Europe with its new models. I was allowed to ride some of their models in India, and now I'm going to present everything to you. So dear friends, TVS, who does this mean something to? Probably not many. TVS claims to be the fourth largest motorbike manufacturer in the world in terms of market share. The third largest in India and produces a bike approximately every 40 seconds. And it produces 3.5 million vehicles a year. Of these, around 3 million are bikes and 500,000 are freewheelers, so tuk-tuks more or less. And to put that into figures, we're talking about TVS Motors' total turnover of around $4 billion a year. They are active in 80 countries, and around 1 million of the bikes they produce are exported. This means that they are already very active in these 80 countries and therefore also have export experience. However, what they still lack is a market in America, Europe and Australia, so the classic premium markets. And now is the time to venture into these markets. And that's why I was in Bangalore, because they invited us to simply see the entire range that they want to bring to us. And to see the facilities there, the factories, how they work there, what they're like, just to get a feel for the brand. I was very pleasantly surprised by what I saw there. But let's go straight to the most important models. I've already mentioned it briefly. I was allowed to ride several models there, but not for a very long time. They didn't let us ride the models on Indian roads, and that for good reasons. The course was such that I would say it was roughly equivalent to a mountain road without a gradient, of course. In total, TVS plans to launch 8 different models in the European market in 2024. 7 of them are already quite certain, and I was able to ride 5 of them. Now I'd like to go through them with you and say a bit about the individual models, because there are a few delicacies and I'll explain why in a moment. So let's go straight into the middle and take a look at how the bikes ride. I want to start with what is probably the most important bike for TVS, which would be the TVS Apache RTR 310, which some of you might think that they've already seen somewhere before. And you are right. The 310cc displacement from BMW are very similar. You probably know the G310 or the G310R or the G310GS. That is no coincidence, because these models are actually built by BMW in India at TVS. Naturally, BMW has provided a great deal of expertise and knowledge here. The cooperation has been in place since 2013, and when we spoke to them before, it was very interesting, because they said that they aspire to be at least as good in manufacturing as BMW is in Berlin, if not even better. And the RTR 310 has now emerged from this G310 Cosmos for the European market. They already exist in a similar form in India and in the rest of the world, but now they're bringing it to the European market. Now, what kind of bike is it? Like the G310, it is a naked bike with the familiar engine. But there are small differences when compared to the BMW. For example, the TVS has just under 36 horsepower. We're also talking about just under 29 Newton meters of torque. The whole thing travels at a maximum speed of 160 kilometers an hour and has a dry weight of 169 kilos. But the special thing about the RTR 310 is something else. First of all, it looks awesome. And secondly, this bike has some absolutely atypical and great features. My favorite feature of this bike, apart from all the lean angle dependent technology with riding modes, traction control, ABS and so on, which you can now have on this bike due to its 6-axis IMU, they have also built in a cruise control. But that is not the coolest feature I wanted to talk about. The coolest feature, which I would never have imagined would ever be implemented in such a bike, is that they have seat cooling. They don't have heated seats, they have cooled seats. And I really thought that that was a crazy joke, because what do I need that for on a 310cc bike? A seat cooling on a V4 hyper naked bike? Yeah, sure, why not? The engine simply produces so much heat that I could actually need it. But I can really tell you, when we were there in India, it was about 28 degrees. The sun was blazing down from the sky. And as I didn't have the seat cooling, I was actually sweating. With the seat cooling, I was really, really comfortable. So, how does the bike ride? I have to say, really very good. As I said, the RTR 310 is based on the G310. That means same engine, same frame. But I think TVS has something very clever. They have knocked in a very, very full spec of features, like I said, with all of its electronics. They have added so many electronics to this bike that it is simply unique. But they also put in an upside down fork from Kayaba in its high-end version, fully adjustable, mind you. We have a quick shifter on this bike. We have a really cool design. We have ergonomics that I would say are a bit reminiscent of the Yamaha MT-09. You sit on it, it is a naked bike, but you're quite relaxed with your arms up pretty high. It's nice and upright and agile, and I was really impressed by it. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of all these displays but the bikes have nowadays, all of these modern displays. But because they're sometimes just not simple and intuitive and easy to use. But the RTR 310 has a beautiful large TFT display, 5 inches, and that's where you realize that the Indians really know what they're doing with this whole software and user interface thing, because they have packed so many features in it, full connectivity, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm gonna have to operate all of these electronic settings using a joystick or something, which is gonna be a pain in the butt. In fact, I have rarely had or ridden a bike where the menu navigation, where the operation of the very complex TFT screen was so intuitive as with this bike. So I'm really the last person in reality who likes to deal with electronics. But then I tried this bike and I have to say it was so easy to use. And it all worked like a charm. The whole bike rides not unlike the BMW G310. I would just say a little better due to the components. You can simply feel the better suspension. You can also feel that the bike is very harmonious, both on the brakes and the suspension. As far as we could feel it on this very flat car track, the feedback was also great. The ABS had very good intervals. The traction control was maybe a bit too aggressive, although I set it to the most well-behaved, the wildest level actually, where I should have had very little intervention, yet I still had a lot of it. We had a Michelin Pilot Road 5 tire on it. The temperature on the go-kart track at 28 degrees may have pushed that tire a bit to its limit. That's why the traction control might have intervened a lot, but all in all, I have to say it's a really, really attractive bike. I like the looks of it. It rides very well. It has the full range of features, really top-notch bike in this class. Except for maybe the power, they could have perhaps gone a bit more towards the 40-48 horsepower A2 class, which we have here in Europe. but for what you get, it really is a great package. The price is where it gets interesting. Now, I have to say, be careful. The price has not yet been fixed for this bike because TVS has not yet signed a contract with an importer for every country where they want to be active. There is already an importer for France, and there are already intensive discussions for other core markets such as Spain, Great Britain, Germany, etc. But they haven't been finalized yet. TVS told me quite openly that the importer naturally decides the price in their respective country. They can only make recommendations. TVS can only make recommendations. But I am allowed to give you these price recommendations. The RTR 310 will be available in a standard version and in a so-called built-to-order version. This is the one that includes all the goodies, so to say. And here we will be in a price range from 5,300 to approximately 6,300 euros. So slightly below or slightly above the G310. But if you put that in relation to the features it offers, I have to say that I think it's a very confident price. Not too high, in my opinion, because the quality you get there is really, really good. Now, let's move on to the next model. This bike is still part of TVS's premier class, so to say. One of their most important bikes in terms of image. I'm speaking about the TVS Apache RR 310, a fully faired sports bike based on the RTR 310, which again has the engine and chassis from the G310 from BMW. The only difference is that the styling is really very attractive and way more aggressive. They told us that in South Asia, the bike is really something like a sexy sports bike for young people. So it has a high image value. And I've ridden that model too. There will also be an update where even more features will be added to this bike. That's why the prices for Europe have not yet been finalized. However, we can say that it rides very similarly to the RTR 310, except of course you have the clip-on handlebars, although they are not super aggressive in terms of riding position. Apart from that, the layout is actually very similar. The technical features will also be very similar. And the funny thing is, the G310 as an RR has not yet been available in Europe. From BMW, for example, as a model. But TVS also builds models for BMW, like I already said. And I have recently heard that BMW again and again expressed their interest in having this model for the European market. And now that is exactly what TVS is doing. So they're bringing a model to the European market, which BMW already wanted to sell in Europe. Now, I am very curious to see if that will be realized in this 300cc Supersport class. I could imagine that this bike would find fans. Of course, it all depends on the price, but hopefully we'll find out more about that relatively soon. Another model that really excited me was the most emotionally appealing from my trip to India, and that would be the TVS Ronin. The Ronin is a modern classic bike with its very own positioning on the market because it has a single-cylinder 225cc engine with approximately 20 horsepower and 20 Newton meters of torque. It goes about 140 kilometers an hour fast, weighs about 160 kilos. It has the potential, I think, to basically pick up a lot of novice riders, but also the odd, I would say, experienced rider. That's why I was so taken by the bike, not only because it's so beautifully made, but I would rate it in terms of quality and finish, just like the Triumph 400 models, the new ones. So really high quality craftsmanship, beautiful multicolored paintwork, beautiful metallic effects, good features. But what was so special about this bike, it is the mixture of naked bike with a bit of scrambler attitude it has. And the riding position is so incredibly relaxed. You sit on it and you're somehow immediately in a bit of a cruising mode. You just want to get from A to B in a very relaxed way. The top speed is about 140 kilometers an hour, which means the motorway, yeah, it's fine. But of course, that's not the most important thing about this bike. But you can really experience a lot of nice motorcycling on this one at a very good price. I think it's obviously not a high performance bike, quite the opposite. We're talking about leisurely riding or cruising, which is possible on this bike, but with a lot of style. And what really, really fascinated me about the bike was the sound. As I said, it's a 225cc single cylinder, but you get a really powerful sound from every TVS model I've ridden down there, all of them. There's a really nice sonorous, bassy sounds when you twist the throttle. And I really have to say, for the class, for a 225cc, great sound, nice riding feel, very harmonious. The engine also feels very torque orientated, so it doesn't need to be revved out at all. You twist the throttle and you already have a nice pull, you already have a nice acceleration. The suspension is also high quality, it's not buttery soft or anything like what you might remember from the past or sometimes suspect from inexpensive bikes. The brakes were also good, nice feedback, ABS, everything is on it. That's what leads me to say it's a great basis, and all the more so for the price. The Ronin is set to cost around 3,800 euros, which is a very attractive package for the bike I was offered to try. And I can only say to anyone who is not looking for a rocket, but something nice, something cozy, something universally usable and perhaps even visually timeless, that they could really take a look at the TVS Ronin for just under 4,000 euros or even less. Because I think you will find a nice package there. Just below the Ronin will be the TVS Rider, which I wasn't allowed to ride. It is a naked bike, an absolute entry-level bike. They told us that quite openly. They want to round off the range a bit towards the bottom, so to say. The bike will cost around 2,500 euros. I think there are scooters here in Austria that cost more. And of course, we now have a very basic bike, one cylinder, 125cc, around 11 horsepower, 11 Newton meters of torque. The whole thing has a dry weight of 123 kilos, so it's on the light side, but it already looks like a real bike. The whole thing goes 99 kilometers fast and has a rock solid features, but as I said, in line with the price, so very basic. And since I wasn't able to ride it, I can't say anything about the riding qualities of the TVS Rider. Another model with which they are also targeting the European market is a scooter, the TVS Jupiter 125, which is also similar to the Rider 125, the entry-level scooter in the scooter segment. Again, we're talking about a very reasonably priced scooter. It should be around 2,500 euros, one cylinder, 125cc, 8 horsepower, 10 to 11 Newton meters of torque, 90 kilometers an hour top speed, 108 kilos dry. The whole thing will be available in several colors, and like all other TVS bikes, it should be available in Europe from around spring 2024. A second scooter that I was also allowed to ride there on the go-kart track is the TVS N-Torq. This is a more interesting product for the European market. It is a 125cc, one cylinder, 3-valve scooter with variomatic. It has around 10 horsepower, 11 Newton meters of torque, top speed of 95 kilometers an hour, and 116 kilos of weight dry. As I said, I was allowed to ride it. It has a very sporty look, and I would say it rides like most 125cc scooters as we know them. So really a nice, solid ride, not noticeable in any way, except for one point, again, which I've emphasized before, the sound of the exhaust. I don't know how they do it, but it just always sounds a bit more potent. So it has a nice bassy note. I really had the feeling here that I was riding a more potent, more powerful scooter than I thought. I have to say, a very good scooter, solid suspension, good brakes, full connectivity. Again, we also have an external fueling nozzle, not under the seat, not on the front left, so it's at the rear. You don't have to get off the scooter to refuel, so to say. We have full LED lighting, and so I have to say, this scooter, for the money it costs, is offering a very solid package. Speaking about the price, they're asking probably around 2,800 euros. However, like I said, this is just a rough recommendation from TVS for the European market. If I compare it with many other scooters in the segment, it's significantly cheaper and offers roughly the same. I can only say that from the car track, I was on the scooter for about 10-15 minutes, but like I said, I did really not miss anything. What you have to say about the scooter, however, is that yes, it has a sporty look, but perhaps the one or other detail of the plastic could be a bit of a higher quality finish for the European market. All the other models I have ridden have had a really high quality finish. On the N-Torq, I noticed that one or two of the fairings could perhaps be finished to a higher standard. But on the other hand, the price of 2,800 euros is still very reasonable, so yeah. Now we'll come to another highlight from TVS, namely the iQube. The iQube is an electric scooter, but I won't say too much about that now because we already have another video featuring just the iQube on our channel. It is a completely in-house development by TVS, a fully electric scooter, and the special thing is that they have already sold 250,000 of them worldwide. So they really know their stuff. The bike or the scooter is expected to cost around 4,500 euros in Europe. The hard facts are lithium battery, 3.4 kilowatt hours, the peak power of around 6.5 horsepower, and a continuous power of 4.5 horsepower. Newton meters are always one of those things with electric motors. The peak Newton meter figure is 140 Newton meters, which is of course incredible. The normal torque is specified somewhere around 33 Newton meters. And of course the weight is very light, 119 kilograms. Top speed is around 80 kilometers an hour, and the most important thing is of course the range. Here there are strong fluctuations in the TVS data. They say that if you ride it very, very cautiously, you can get up to 100 kilometers on a full charge. If you then ride it a bit more sportily, then it's gonna be around 75 kilometers of range. It also depends on the riding mode you're in, since it has two, eco and power. The whole thing, as I said, features a 3.4 kilowatt battery. Unfortunately, there is no quick charging function, which is a bit of a shortcoming in my opinion. TVS states that it takes 4.5 hours to charge from 0 to 80% at 650 watts of charging power. Of course, that's a bit much. Now let's see, maybe there will be something else for the European market soon. TVS has had electric scooters in this segment for 10 years now and has continued to develop them over the last decade. TVS produces everything itself apart from the battery cell. They buy them in, but they develop everything else in-house. This means that they have a lot of expertise in this regard and they do everything by themselves. They manufacture the hardware and the software, which means that they not only have a great deal of expertise, but can also work very efficiently. Another interesting scooter will be the TVS X, a very, very hot scooter from TVS, which will be presented later this year. I was able to see a rideable prototype down there. It's an electric scooter as well. If it comes out the way we saw it there at the price they told us, which I'm not allowed to pass on yet, then I think we might really see the first electric scooter in Europe that has a good range, good power, and above all, good features. They've quite literally put an iPad between the handlebars. Really, it's massive. The resolution is like an iPad, so retina resolution, you don't see any pixels, full connectivity, touch operation, and so on and so forth. So they've really packed everything into it that's possible, and that's exactly how it's supposed to come. Worldwide, including for us in Europe. If that's the case, I have to be honest, I think it's a really, really big leap for electromobility in the scooter segment, which I think is important and good for us. And I really hope that we get to test it very soon because I'm really excited about it. I really want to try this and ride it. Now, let's see when we get it. All in all, I have to say it was a very exciting trip, good bikes, very attractively priced. In my opinion, I'm pretty sure that these bikes will find a place in the European market. If they continue like this, I think we will soon see bikes that have been developed more for the European market as well. So we're talking more about larger displacement engines, and then I believe we will have an Indian player in the European market who will be there for a long time and who I believe will be allowed and able to gain a lot of market shares in the future. Because what I have seen so far was a very well thought out concept, and I could imagine that we will also see much more from TVS in the future. With this in mind, I am delighted that you watched. It turned out to be a bit longer than originally planned. Please leave us a few comments. What do you think of Indian manufacturers? Where could TVS have success or not? Of course, if you have anything else you want to say, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and on that note, thank you and bye!